At KSMO Radio 1340, time for us to sit down with Hospital Administrator Kasey Lucas. And we have a War and Peace to go over. A lot of information at this time of year. And, of course, we're talking about budget. We're talking about patient satisfaction surveys, etc. We'll summarize some of that to expedite a little bit, but we do want to kind of go over the budget. Upcoming proposed budget. I won't say it is the budget because it was given to the board for the first time.
Yes.
For them to look. So anyway, well, first off, good to have you here, my friend. And,
well, thank you.
You have a very
It's
nice tie on.
Thank
Kasey has a nice, what I call a plaid tie. I like it. That's very, very attractive.
Thank you.
So anyhow, first off, and I kind of prefaced in our conversation today earlier with how COVID-19 and the stay-at-home order by the governor has affected our hospital. And it's affected everybody, but our hospital gets a big hit on some of this because nobody's going out. People are a little bit afraid.
Yes.
So they're not, if they have something wrong with them, I may not go to the emergency room because I don't want to get the coronavirus,
Yes.
Or maybe they're just not sure if they should go at all. Now, SMDH Family Medicine, the clinic, also has suffered a little bit down. Even though they have free physicals, they still provide all the services that they have. They have cut their hours back to 6. But, guys, if you have something wrong with you, if you need something looked at, they're still open. Everybody's still going good. If you have an emergency, if you break your arm or hurt your arm or something, get the emergency room. You don't have to sit there and where do I go for corona? You don't have corona.
Yes.
You get to the hospital and
Yes.
get taken care of. Or if something serious happens, if you're getting short of breath and you're not sure why, you should call your primary care physician first and then let them determine if you should have a test. And if you do have the test, the hospital can come out and give you that test separate away from everybody else.
Yes.
Okay.
And in that testing, we have an alternative testing site, but we also have drive-up testing too.
Right.
So whether they, if they talk with their primary care orders that, again, that should be something that primary care and the emergency room and the patient themselves are all talking. And again, we want to provide that in the best way, have them feel good about it, have us feel good about it, and make sure it's as safe as possible. And so, yes, all those things. And really, we've seen that a decrease. And as we start to get into the numbers, when you start looking at volumes and capacity that we've seen, the emergency room is probably at 60% capacity. We're only seeing about 60% of what we've seen before, and that's on a good day. But again, on an average, about 60% capacity. So you start looking at those numbers, and it's just, it can be, it's devastating to the hospital, but to the community in the sense that if there is that fear of, hey, this is what's going on, make a phone call, talk to someone, whether it's primary care or even call the emergency room and start that conversation, even though I know that their comment will be, if you think you need to come in, don't hesitate, come in. And, I will say we have seen the increase in testing because of some of the relaxed protocol and some of the relaxed requirements for that testing. And so we've seen an increase in testing. Again, for since the beginning of this pandemic, we've seen that one positive in Dent County. And that there's a number of reasons why we could only have that one positive. Maybe it's not here. Maybe the right people haven't been tested yet. Maybe we haven't, performed enough tests to really see that. But whatever that is, if you need help, if you are experiencing what you may not think it's an emergency, like you said, shortness of breath or tightness in the any of those things, anything. The emergency room is open, and to date, every test that the hospital has completed has been negative for COVID. So, if you're if you're thinking it's here, it's not.
Right.
We haven't seen that. We haven't been able to capture that in statistics, capture that in testing. We haven't been able to do that. So don't put off those things that those health scares maybe that you think you're having. Don't put those off. Don't not come in. You need to come in and be seen and checked out.
Right.
Or at the very least, call your primary care physician, primary care provider, and have the discussion.
Right.
These times can be scary, and
Right.
we want to be there. We want to help those or those patients, and make sure that everybody is safe and getting the care they need.
And unfortunately, when you get bombarded with the media telling you stay at home and do these things, nobody was quarantined in Dent County. It was a stay-at-home order, stay home from working, not to go out and create a problem. Didn't mean that if you're ill, that or if you suffer a problem, that you can't go out and get it fixed. So keep that in mind, people. We're not the stay-at-home is gone. If you have an issue, please don't hesitate. Get to the hospital. If summertime's coming, Kasey. I cut the grass last night. It was wet as all get out. But we know if as wet as it is right now, if that sun comes out, that humidity level is going to skyrocket.
Yes.
And we're talking heat exhaustion, heat stroke. That's all coming up. That is not something, guys, you can sit there and say, well, I think I'm going to put off going to the emergency room with this heat stroke. I think I'd be able to take care of it myself. No.
Yeah, right.
Don't try that. There's a proper way of getting a person's body temperature back down. You can do more damage, or you can do something very silly like trying to put ice on their chest. You might put that person in a cardiac arrest by doing something like that. So, again, as Kasey mentioned, if you have questions, please call the emergency department. They'll be glad to talk to you, and they will get back, get you in a position where either you're comfortable, give you something. Maybe they send out the ambulance to get you, maybe from that phone call. But don't hesitate calling 911 if you've got some issue. Please don't. Get to the hospital as quickly as you can. All right, let's. I did want to make one mention thing, and I know we'll probably talk about it in the middle of all this, but I did want to make one mention, is that in Kasey's presentation on Tuesday night, you were very proud to say that no one has been furloughed at the hospital.
Yes.
As of yet. Everybody has stayed on, and that is a fantastic thing. Considering everybody should know the numbers are going to be down.
Yes.
No surgeries, no elective things that can be done, but the hospital has maintained their level of employment, and I tip my cap to you. That takes a little bit of maneuvering, a little bit, but it's important that these people know that they have a secure job.
Yes.
Many hospitals have let thousands go.
Sure. And size of the hospital, the systems you've seen and you've heard rumors or you've heard details of these systems, whether it's whatever system it is, letting, thousands go. And that's unfortunate. And I'm going to say, depending on the size and the status of the hospital or system, I mean, size does matter, and because of the stimulus packages that are out there that are available, help that's available, it does matter. And so, we look at April, and April was a full month of this COVID, us under this COVID pandemic,
Right.
and the results of that financially, what we've seen, and so that's scary to see that, to know that on a daily basis, to know what your revenue per day is and where it is and where it's going. And when you pay attention to it on a daily basis, a change of $10,000 from one day to the next, from a day, it worries you. But then when you multiply that times 30 days in a month, you
7,
start
it just
looking
keeps
at
growing,
that,
yeah.
and then it keeps declining too. So as let's just say on an average we started at 180, we're in the 150s daily revenue. So there is a difference, and you see that, and the longer that goes on,
The more difficult it
the
gets.
more difficult it is to do those things,
Yeah.
to keep those things as, but as you see that some of those things starting to increase already, which is a good thing. Again, our state, we've opened things up, and we've started, and for, as healthcare providers, that's difficult, that's scary, because as people start to get out there and be more social, you look for the surge to come, or the positives to start coming in. And again, you're going to start taking care of those as well. So it's a balance that has to happen. We approach every patient that comes in that has symptoms or is tested as if they're positive, until we get that result of negative.
Right.
And then you always have to think about this: how accurate is the test? How accurate is the testing that's being done? Is it 70% accurate? Is it
95?
Yeah, is it? You kind of look at that and you go, well, okay, so we had a negative. Is that a false negative? If it were a positive, is that a false positive? So you always have to take those things into consideration. And so far the one positive, there's only one.
It's only one. And kudos to the health department on getting on top of that quickly and getting all the closest contacts and everything.
Yes.
Are you leaving me a note?
Yes.
I have to be done. Yeah, okay. Sure. We have 512 pages to go through.
Oh, it's not many.
Okay, so, well, we can streamline a little bit. That's because you kind of already did a good introduction to what we need to talk about. Let's just go ahead and we'll get started on it then. The inpatient admissions, virtually all categories for April are going to be lower, and significantly lower, from all the way from acute care up to inpatient admissions to emergency room. All your registrations, your tests, everything's going to be lower. Rehabilitation, I was kind of glad to see it was still fairly far up there at 501, but kind of knowing that in the next couple of months that could drop off substantially now, because surgeries just haven't been done. Now they're getting started to be done again. So hopefully that will pick back up.
And we've seen some referrals start to come in, and those orders start to come in for that. So
which is good.
It's very positive.
Okay, so we see that. Also, there was a little bit of telehealth that was done. The hospital did some telehealth, right?
Yes, we did telehealth in outpatient services, but also in the clinic.
Right.
So, and some of those were, I'm going to say telephone check-ins instead of actually over the computer and telehealth, or over the phones, the smartphones or whatever as telehealth. But and we're wanting to make sure that even all those the clinic patients that what we will consider well patient visits, which maybe during this time has been postponed, or we're at least asking the patients, what's your thoughts, if you feel like you can come in, and again, knowing that we haven't seen the COVID, we haven't seen the positives of the COVID, and I'll say that because, not that they're not here, but maybe we're not testing those, or maybe the ones that are here, maybe they're not here.
Yeah.
But looking at that, yes, definitely, and looking at that and saying, it's really your comfort level. If you feel like you could come into there, great. If you're older, a little bit more immune compromised, maybe we should do a telephone or a telehealth if we can do it. But we don't want to just leave people without that care. We want to have a conversation about that. We want to still have that contact with those patients to make sure, they're not experiencing any complications or any other illnesses that are coming up. And like you said before, we're just putting them off and off and off and off. at least we're having a conversation, so I can ask you if anything's different, or I can ask
Right,
you, and,
right.
and we can get down to that.
Because if you are suffering pain or something, you do need to get in and see your physician. You do need to do that. But if you're just going to go in for your normal 12-month check, you can put it off a month.
Yes.
Very good. All right, so most of the numbers we mentioned are down. The ambulance runs were down because really nobody's supposed to be on the road, so
Yeah.
they were really way down. So 115 patients were transported though, and quite a few were dry runs as well. So that compared to normal, I say that almost 40%,
Yeah.
which is high. Usually it's about 27 to 30%.
Yes. Right at that
A
30%.
little bit. And I think more people are a little bit more cautious at that time, trying to make sure that if they made the call, there's an accident.
Yep.
And usually, and really the Highway Patrol has pointed this out, the accidents while this stay-at-home order were happening, fatalities went up because people were actually going 20 to 25 miles an hour over speed limits,
Wow.
knowing that
Yeah.
nobody out there. Well, unfortunately, some roads, doesn't matter if you have anybody out there or not, you can't drive 68 at 85 miles an hour and think you're going to make it through if you never drove the road before. So don't try it. Let's just go ahead and jump down into some of the operating statements, Kasey, and I think that will show people what we're kind of talking about. Obviously, the operating statement shows a major reduction in hospital inpatient income, also in outpatient income, and if both of those go down, that's usually not a very good sign. But
No.
you knew that was going to happen.
Sure. And when you look at total patient revenue we just compare it to last April. I mean, 1.5 million of $5.2 million revenue. We had budgeted 4.8, a little on the conservative side, but you're down 1.5 million from last April. So where we would have hoped there would have been a little growth there from the last year, but I think you start to get the idea that
Right.
this does affect us, and it that's where you start, is that 3.5 million. Obviously, deductions are down as well because you don't
Sure.
have that revenue to take those deductions from, but not near as much as the difference in revenue. So,
But let's qualify the expenses, because normally you'd say, okay, well, the expenses should be way down, but the hospital's in the middle of an expansion. Plus, you had to
Yes.
buy all these extra materials for COVID-19.
Yes.
So you got to get that. You've got to do this. You've got to
Yes.
set stuff aside. You've got to set up this. You've got to set up that. So there's extra labor involved
Yes.
in doing all this. There's extra costs involved with the
Yes.
supplies,
Yes. And-
tests, etc. And so the expenses actually went up.
Yes, for the month. And
Yeah.
that's exactly why. I mean, you have, the timing couldn't have been worse for us with being starting the expansion
Yeah.
and starting COVID at the same time. I mean, it's just, it's terrible. And you see construction workers walking around the halls of the hospital with masks on because it's required,
Right.
and they have to do
Have
that.
to do it.
And I know for them, if they're working in healthcare anywhere else, they're having to experience that same thing, and that is wearing those masks, being just meeting the requirements of the hospital. There was no way we have reduced the number of vendors that are coming into the hospital as well, but those contractors, they have to be
do
there.
it. That's right.
And so they have to meet those requirements, and they have to act in a certain way while they're in the facility.
Either
And,
that or they deliver their stuff outside and they leave.
yes, and that's some of the vendors
some
that
of them are
when
doing
you're
that
looking
too. Sure.
at UPS,
Leave
everything.
it out there.
Yeah, leave it outside.
We might spray the box down. Never know.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you do what you have to do. So the loss of operations over $680,000 because of those changes, and because the expansion did not stop. The expansion kept going.
Yes.
And it's really probably a pretty good time to do the expansion, except you're not getting the revenue to offset
Well,
it.
and
That's the bad news there.
And I will say
Yeah.
one update on that expansion. Part of it was replacing our main sewer line through the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Today, or let's say A couple of weeks into, well, I'm going to say our surgery, the surgery volume stopped mid-March.
Mid-March, yeah.
So we saw those effects in March. But as we were out of surgery all April, I'm going to say a few weeks into, or a couple weeks into April, we really started the sewer line
line.
replacement, and we started it in surgery because actually that was the best time to do
Sure,
it. It
absolutely.
was vacant of any activity, so we could actually tear up the flooring and start that process, and we've done that.
So a lot of work got done.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's not many people in there, and services, as you mentioned,
Are
we're not being done. So go ahead and
postponed at
take
this
the floor.
time.
All right, but you did get money, and you mentioned at the last board meeting that the hospital had gotten some stimulus money.
Yes.
Of course, that was money that was got in April. So in March you didn't recognize it. You
Sure.
recognized it in April, which was $572,000
Yes.
from the stimulus.
Yes.
That helps. Still got a loss though of $105,000.
Sure,
You know, so
sure.
that's for after the taxes, etc. So stimulus money is nice to have. It's not operating money though.
Nope.
It's not.
Nope.
It's not something
Nope.
you can bill out later.
No.
It's just one time. Now you're going to get more stimulus money, or are you
Yes.
not?
Yes, we
Okay.
did.
Okay.
We did.
So
And we
you
got
will.
that in May,
Okay.
and we will see that on the next financials. But as we, it's as you start looking at the operations, yes, that's the operations, and those extra dollars are not in operating; those are non-operating funds. And again, on our financials, lumped with the tax revenue, because that's just where our non-operating revenue gets put. So that's where it is.
Yeah.
Again, still had a loss for the month,
Oh, yeah.
even with that amount, and
Right.
and so you start looking at. Again, I go back to the net operating revenue of 1.7 million. In 45 to 60 days, that's what we're looking at for receipts. So, though that's time that the stimulus money that we received in May. Again, we need to be
Holding on to it.
as
Frugal?
frugal
Yeah.
as we can
Yeah.
with those dollars, because
Yeah.
we don't know how long we're going to have to stretch those out.
That's right.
And so, as we will see in the financial or on the balance sheet, definitely when we get there, we'll talk about that, the cash and
Yeah.
some of those things that,
Yeah.
that show up there. But
Well, we're going to go through this fairly quick because you don't have the time to go into a great detail, but it's all right. I mean, this is a lot of numbers, and we're going to throw out a lot more numbers with budget, so we'll go through it pretty quick. Because we already talked about that, the expenses were up. Salaries didn't take a hit because the hospital kept everybody on. So the dollar figures for salaries and wages stayed consistent. That didn't change. And also, the contracts that you have stays the same.
Yes.
Those services are still available, so you still have to pay for those services. And then you have some contractuals. Obviously, those contractuals are still, billing, nursing.
yes.
Whether you use them or not, you
Yes.
got to pay for them, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I thought I heard you say that last night. Whether we use them or not,
Yeah.
we have a contract and we have to pay it. So, may as well have them come in if you can and get some things done. But again, a little bit of that being paid back helps a little bit. But some of the things that people don't understand is those supplies, how expensive and how hard it is to get those supplies, and you're paying market price.
Yes.
This isn't something that you can buy and there's a surplus in a warehouse somewhere and you're getting them. You're ordering them and you wait
Yes.
because they're not there.
No, and I will say that the federal and the state stockpile of those supplies, they were a help. They helped us to get us to a point, but yes, we have ordered and we are still waiting on some of those things. I mean, it's going to be a constant battle to get. I mean, this thing's.
It's a worldwide thing.
It's not over yet.
No.
We're still in the middle of it, and I pray that we do not see the volume hit Missouri. I mean, you got a little bit of hot spots in Missouri, if we can call them hot spots. They are hot spots for Missouri.
Right.
When you look at them nationally, they're nowhere near those hot spots.
They're like barely warm.
Yes.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't want hot spots. All right, very good. Okay, so real quick, we're going to just jump into the balance sheet, and I mean to tell you, if you were a gambling man, You see this cash balance that comes up and it's over almost $9 million.
Yes.
And now I'm thinking somebody's probably out there, well, wait a minute, I thought you said
Yeah.
they had a tough month. Well, they did. Now, here's the issue. You had $2.5 million come in for your expansion, bond
Yes.
money.
Yes.
All right, so
Bond
that
money.
money came in.
That's sitting on these accounts, even
Right.
though,
But it's receipts,
Yes.
right? This is a cash operation, right?
Yeah.
So those are receipts. You got 3.25 from CMS, which technically you're paying back
Yes.
with CMS claims.
in a very short amount of time.
Right, you got 6 months, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're paying $3.25 million back. And if you
Yes.
don't have to pay it back, you got to give it back in 6 months. Is that, or are you paying?
No. It will be used because as of
I don't know how much.
as
your
of
CMS
120
goes.
days
Uh-huh.
from the date of receipt, any claims that they would normally pay, they're no longer going to pay those claims.
Okay.
We have to use these dollars stretched over however long we have to stretch it. And they will keep track on their claims when they have filled $3.25 million worth of claims that would normally be receipts for us.
Right.
When they reach that point, then they'll start paying claims again.
All right.
They're just going to withhold this $3.2 million from our
They're giving
claims.
you an advance.
Yes.
They gave you an advance.
Yes.
Okay, so they gave you an advance. However, as Kasey mentioned, that $1.75 million you had, some of that is CMS money. You're not going to see it.
Yes.
You've already got it.
Yes.
So this is where it gets a little tricky here. I'd say creative bookkeeping is just keeping track of all this is going to be a logistical nightmare. And then you also have some stimulus money that came in. So, you add all that to it, and next thing you know, you've got near $9 million. But as you mentioned earlier or in the meeting Tuesday night, that CMS money is looked at as a loan because you're paying it back.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
are paying it back
Yeah.
with every claim
Well,
that you're not getting.
And I'm going to say this: you take $6 million, about $6 million, off of this $8.9 million. You take $6 million off, we're left with $2.9 million, and that's where we were
Last month.
last month.
Yep.
So very close to that. That's
Right.
where we are, and that's how we look at it. Is we're looking at our operating funds and where our operating funds to keep our eyes on where we actually
Right.
are. We're not talking about stimulus money. We're not
Right.
talking about any
Normal
other dollars.
operations.
Yes, we're
Normal.
just looking at that account, and to make sure that account shouldn't. We want it to stay right at that $3 million
Close to $3 million.
line as it can.
Or you actually want to go up off your normal receipts, your
Sure.
normal bills.
Sure.
Excuse
Sure.
me. Now, let me, and I just want to touch on this a little bit, that a lot of the expansion that hospitals already paid for out of general revenue, now that the bonds have been issued, you actually can take some of that money from the bonds issued and pay back some of that, right?
Sure. And some
Recover some of that cash, I should say.
yes. And
Not
some
your
of that happened. Some of that happened in April as well. So
Okay.
our first, the first draw that we made off of those bond funds were from
Reimbursement?
reimbursement to ourselves for some of those things that happened. So that was about $300,000.
You need a group of accountants for every single one of these new things you got in there, because I'm telling you what, stimulus money, got to do this with CMS. You've got,
And all I'm saying, Stan, this is all happening without a CFO.
I know. I mean, you guys are, well, you had done that
Yes,
before,
yeah.
so you're familiar with it. But it does get technical.
Yes.
And because you've got to keep track of every single thing here. When you're doing building expansion, this is going to be monitored by the state. Going
Yes.
to be monitored by the feds. You're going to have to make sure everything falls in line. They're going to come and inspect. And if you've got that bond issue, everything has to be lined out, every single penny.
Yes.
CMS is going to be the same way.
Yes.
Everything that you're doing here. And then maybe with the money that the county got for that reimbursement due to COVID-19. The hospital may be eligible for some of that if you can show direct expenses for your
Yes.
supplies and stuff for COVID. Now that's another class that you can sit there and just list everything
Sure.
and then possibly get reimbursed here at the end of the year.
Yeah, but it is more complicated than that.
I know.
But I'm
trying to
saying
simplify it.
I'm saying that it's very vague, and what will be covered and what won't be covered is it's difficult today. Now, as we get a little bit further into it, it might be more obvious. But a lot of these grants, dollars that you're going to get for this, if nobody else, if there's no other way of paying for it, then this will cover it. How do the question is, how do we show that? And other than saying we wouldn't have had this expense,
Had it not been for
or
COVID-19.
90% of this
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had if it wasn't for COVID.
Well, let's
You
put
know.
it this way. How many costs of those masks that you're wearing, your cardinal mask that you have here?
Right.
Normally at the hospital you didn't wear masks except in surgery and things that,
Yes.
when it needed
Yes.
to be made.
Yes.
So obviously there's a change, there's some
Yes.
cost there and
Yes.
stuff, and with the testing.
Yes.
So hopefully, and I know the guidelines are not set on that yet, but what I'm saying is that even when you have to start keeping books now, though, you can't wait
Sure.
till October
No.
and suddenly go back and try and find all these different things. You're going to go
No,
crazy doing
no,
that.
and really from that standpoint, the bookkeeping's kept so today that you can go back to any item, such as masks,
Sure.
and say what was used for eight of the 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
or even 9, even into March, because March wasn't full
Right.
go,
Right.
COVID yet. So even 9 months worth of masks, how many were used, and then from that time forward, how many masks have we used?
Yeah.
And you pull out the norm,
Right.
and you're left with the excess of COVID.
Yeah, but from
You know.
my understanding with that, you have to show receipts. Yeah, that's gonna,
Yeah.
That's gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. You can. We're simplifying this to a great
Yes.
degree, but what I'm saying is that this will be a bookkeeping nightmare
Mm-hmm.
because you've got your normal operation. And just going through your normal operations every day is a full time job. Then to add all
Yes.
these other things to get reimbursed, it's just going to be fun
Yes.
times.
Yeah.
Fun times at the hospital. I'm telling you what, it's going to be good. All right, the cash flow statement did show an increase of almost $5.9 million. Of course, we talked about why, with the others coming in and over $6 million. But so ending cash, $8.9 million. Shoot, you guys are doing great. No, and we're being very facetious about that. Hospital really it was a tough month.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very tough month. All right, very good. CDs, we don't even need to worry about that. Cash on hand, you have 123 days, obviously.
Yes.
That's artificially high because of some free money. We'll just say free money. The stimulus money helps, but also the extra money in for the expansion, things of that nature
Yeah.
coming in. Aging accounts receivable, 103 days in April, probably going to be longer
Yeah.
in May because you can't bill people when they're not there.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there were a lot of insurance companies that shut their doors.
Yes.
And started working from home, and nobody responds. You have already countered that by the look
Yeah.
on his
Yeah.
face.
And the calculation changes when our revenue changes. This calculation of days in net AR, that's revenue that you have in that AR. So when that revenue goes down, and don't get me wrong, AR has come down too because we
Sure.
haven't had that. But when that average revenue per day goes down, that increases the days also because the average is lower, and so it divides into this big number of AR more times, and so days tend to increase because of all of those things together.
And let's let people honestly. Let's just say what this means, not in accounting wise, but
Yeah.
if you were to try and live your life, okay, in regular status, and you weren't going to get the paycheck from the work you did 103 days ago, that's 3 months and 3.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you worked in February and you're not got your check yet
Yeah,
for that work.
yeah,
How far can you go? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
basically what you have to do. Now, grant you this, that's trying to simplify this in the most extreme terms, but That's basically what people have to understand. You still got to buy supplies. You still got to do all that, whether or not that money's coming in 20 days or 103 days. It doesn't make a difference. But you did say there was a couple reductions in some of the accounts, which is good news.
Yes.
Medicaid and commercial.
Well,
I
the
believe?
commercial,
Yep.
commercial was good.
Okay. Acute care was way down. As we move forward, we're going to have to really hustle it up since,
Yes.
he's on a sprint today. That's okay. Acute care staffing and acute care patients down. Staffing, we had a couple of days that got up there. Not too many, but a couple of days that got high. One, 2/3 of the way through April, another one near the end of the April, to where you still got to have that service there.
Yes, and that's the thing is, over the years we have, and I'm going to say, since all of my time at Salem Hospital, we've never mandatorily sent nursing staff home, and we've asked if somebody wanted to go, if we, but we've never
Force them
to go home. And, a facility our size with the amount of employees, we don't have the option to do that a lot of the time because we'll lose those employees.
Right.
And that's very important. I would say from a nursing standpoint or just a staffing standpoint, that's been very positive, and that's one benefit of coming to a smaller facility like ours. Anyway.
Very good. Okay, hospital auxiliary. Well, pretty much all those wonderful things they have. Scrub Hub, Hospital Week Barbecue, and the She Rose Productions all canceled, obviously, through May. Now they did reschedule the She Rose Productions for July.
Yeah.
So that's going to be done. The hospital auxiliary does not meet during the summer, and they won't be meeting again until September. Fundraisers for the hospital foundation. Jason Edwards says, we're playing golf, dudes.
Yes.
On June 5th.
It's still on.
We're teeing off. So if you would like to play, you can still sign up.
Yes.
You can still sponsor. You can still do that. They are going to have the golf tournament. So if you have any questions, just call Jason at the hospital, and they can get you a form. Go ahead.
Yep, and it was normally, because of the volume for the last couple of years, we've split it into 2 tee times, one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
8 and 1, I believe, right?
Yes,
Yep.
8 and 1, and depending on the volume, again, it's set up to continue to do that, because if the volume is normal, then we will have that. If it's less than normal and to a point that we can just have 1 tee time and have everybody tee off at that time, then we will do that. But that will be probably last minute that we make that adjustment. But again, it'll be, we'll make it evident to all the players and everybody that signed up if that tee time changes.
Sure, and we will also remind everybody there will be some differences in the golf tournament, obviously, because of social distancing. So some of the things in the past, like some of the vendors that have booths out there, obviously they won't be all next to each other.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
And where the lunch is served, you'll have to be a little spaced apart. So, guys, there will be some minor differences, but still, it's still a fun time. And, and I think now that people may know that the golf tournament is going to be on, I'm hopefully that people will sign up for it. Some people are still home. Why not? Just go play some golf and enjoy it. Should be a lot of fun. Anyway, the Wings and Strings still on for September 12th. They're in the middle of still negotiating with that. And then, of course, the USDA distance learning that was dealing with the schools. Schools have been closed for 3 months. Hard to get anything really going there. And really, nobody's been at the schools to do this. And so, but you have gotten your initial meeting done. You've gotten certificate of authority and all that. All that's done. And there were 3 scholarships given out to 3 Salem seniors.
Yes. Always looking at health career, some kind of a healthcare career. But those 3 scholarship recipients, Bailey Pace, Madison Wolf, and Anna McDaniel.
Very good.
So,
and congratulations
yes,
to them.
Congratulations.
And they will get that scholarship, and then they'll get to graduate June 5th. They're going to have it.
And I'm just going to say congratulations to all the 2020 graduates. It's a tough year. This is You know,
Real
it's a sad way that it had to end this way for them. But again, they're on to the next stage.
And yeah, they still got a graduation
Well,
exercise coming up on the 5th. It may not be the typical one.
Yes.
Yeah, but we'll be there.
Yes.
We'll be there
Yes.
anyway. But yeah, so anyway, congratulations to them.
Yeah.
And congratulations to the hospital and the foundation being able to offer those scholarships as well. All right, community perception and marketing. Obviously, all that stuff can't be held right now due to the social distancing in groups. So pretty much all the first responder, the CPR training, etc., all has been postponed until things get back to pretty much normal. There's been some ads in the papers that talking about different things at the hospital, including the construction work, also the COVID-19, things of that nature. So very good. Real quick on the emergency department and the family medicine patient satisfaction survey results. I know the feedbacks aren't what you want. They're kind of low, but pretty much middle of March, everything just kind of started to fall off anyway.
Yeah.
And so the numbers are down, but the results are still very good.
Yeah.
High
Very good.
results. Everything is really in pretty good shape there. And because I know we have to run through this budget, so I'm not going to go through all the different things.
Yeah.
But
And feedbacks for family medicine weren't. I mean, feedbacks in the ER were very low. Again, we did change to a point of service survey there, so that's a little bit different. We still struggle with that a little bit.
Right.
So.
well, if I want to get out of the ER, I don't want to take
I know.
a survey when I'm leaving.
I know.
Especially if you're just, somebody conked you on the head or something, and you're getting there and they check you out and make sure you're good to go. The last thing you probably want to do is a survey. But it really is important for the hospital guys to get those surveys back in. Really
Yes.
is. They
Yeah.
have to. That's how they correct problems.
Yeah.
They don't know of any problems unless you point them out. But I will say that many of those cases, in the survey that I saw, I think maybe one or two people may have had some issues, and I don't
Yes.
even say many, but just some, and it wasn't bad at all. Virtually everything was in the 90% range or above.
Yes.
On the best,
Yeah.
on the best category. All right, finance committee. Oh Lord Almighty, you didn't have a chief of staff's report,
No,
so
didn't,
that
yeah.
had to bypass that. So let's do the finance committee. Mr. Ray Bruno from the board did talk a little bit about this, and there's a couple of changes in the finance committee when they had to approach this. Didn't have a lot of time to do this with all the
Right.
COVID-19.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
one meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically one meeting with a lot of
Yeah.
but basically one meeting just to get everything put together. You probably had an initial meeting and
Yes.
talk about what's going to go on, but then one meeting to set the numbers and put everything together. That's not a lot of time, Kasey, to do a
Yeah.
budget. But I think the guys did a real good job. Well, I should say I think the finance committee did a real good job. I shouldn't
Yes.
say guys. That could get me in trouble.
They did a good job, and we have a couple of new newer board members, Willie Strader and Mike Swires, new to the process. So I think this is Mike's second time through it. But anyway, they've seen the budget, the budget process. We've got that down to
That's
a
pretty
very
much a
easy,
science,
very easy process. But we start with the market assessment, and that's looking at all the things that go into healthcare, whether it's local, state, or federal. You start looking at those things. You start looking at the medical staff, needs for medical staff,
Right.
things that you see over the next year, things that they're going to happen, what kind of clinics and specialties we have that are coming, and again, we're always looking for opportunities to grow that.
Right.
And so, but as of now, we have those things. We start with down to the admission by physician, the volume by physician. We start looking at all of that throughout the whole year. We look at that for about a 5-year trend,
Right.
and we say where's that going? Where does that put us? Really to start looking at the census days, the admissions, the census days, the outpatient registrations, the ER visits that we're going to see. And so we bring all that information together. And I'm going to say we look at that and we say, well, we don't want to budget all the growth that we've seen. we want to pull back and be a little bit more conservative. And in this time of uncertainty with COVID, that's another thing that we've got to pull back. And it makes us pulling back that much more important, so that we say, well, again, we've had one complete month of April's volumes. Hopefully that's the bottom, and we are starting to climb, and we feel we're starting to climb out. Not in every area, but there are certain areas that we're starting to climb. And we want to see that get back to as normal as we can, as soon as we can, not only for the health of the hospital, but for the health of the community.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
We look at that, and again, we want that to get back as far as, or as much as we can back to normal. I know that what we've presented doesn't have a whole lot of reduction for COVID, because again, at this point, we're still
When you
unsure.
initially did this, you didn't have COVID.
Yeah, true. We were halfway through the process, and well, I'm going to say 80%, 75% through the process before COVID had any effect on us at all. And so, as we start to look at that, we will again review May, see where May puts us. We still have time to change that before the next board meeting if we need to change that a little bit. I mean, we did end up budgeting for increases in just a regular annual increase in charges of about 5%. And so as we look at those, and then we get into the expense projection, so we always look at what salary increases, what retirement plan, what we're going to still provide for the retirement plan. And you've seen and probably have heard these systems that we had talked about, making adjustments for COVID, furloughing employees, reducing any maybe just a reduction in hours for certain patient or certain employees. And then, definitely I've heard retirement plan reductions, what we are contributing. Okay. Our plan is, again, today, to not reduce those employees. Raises are a questionable thing.
Ray said strategic raises.
Sure.
Not the across-the-board raises this year, at least at this time.
Yes.
You can always adjust the budget in the middle of the year.
And that's what we plan to do as we go forward, is to really see where this is pushing us and make adjustments as we go. And like I said, yes, I think federal government has came through with certain stimulus and dollars that we can help to offset some of these losses and some of the volumes, the decrease in volumes. But just how quickly those will come back or get back to an acceptable level, or a level that would pay for the salaries and the fixed expenses that we have, and the all of the expenses that we have in the hospital, it's a very unknown at this time how that will happen and when that will happen and how that will come back. So we're looking at those things. Again, we haven't made a whole lot of adjustments to the budget for those. But that is something that you said, just like you said, we can alter that budget if we need to alter that budget as we go forward. And we'll do that.
And I want to remind people, when they talk about this budget, and they do go through it, this is a long process, guys. I mean, we're simplifying this to the nth degree, only because, first off, Kasey has to leave here pretty soon. But also, when they talk about length of stay, for acute care patients, swing bed, whatever it might be, those numbers, that's a tremendous amount of numbers that goes into that and calculated. And he mentioned going back 5 years, things have changed in the last 2 years with some of the length of stays, and then some of the changes in the governmental allowing you to leave somebody in longer than they did before, or making it a shorter stay than they did before, also affects what you can do. So those all have to be taken into account. So it's not just go back 5 years and use those numbers. Well, man, there was nobody staying more than 2 days.
Yes.
It's because they didn't let you stay more than 2 days. Because there's reasons for that. All right, very good. So in the operating statement, real quick, Kasey, we only have about 5 minutes, and I want to go through that. Obviously, when the hospital, to get budgeted numbers for the next year, have to annualize the current year.
Yes.
So they had 8 solid months, and they went on that 8 solid months statements that they presented to the board.
Yes.
And they take that and they figure out what that is per month. Basically,
Yes.
you can average that out and then multiply that by 4 more, add it on, and you get some numbers. Now, grant you, somebody will say, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. One of the questions that I would have had for the board was, okay, where are we fitting in what Kasey had earlier described? We know we're going to have some issues with some of those annualized numbers. That doesn't mean the current budget for 2021, though, is off.
Sure.
It just means you got to check the annualized numbers to make sure that, okay, we're not skewed one way or another to where it's going to affect the 2021 budget.
Yeah, and really, it's all about monitoring as we go. Like I said, we start with monitoring what we've done for April, and that being where we hope the bottom the bottom is, and then we start looking at May, and we review this on a daily basis where that number is taking us, on a weekly basis to see trends of, okay, how many outpatient registrations per day. That's one of the things that we start looking at every week and every couple of days when we start looking at that volume. But every day we have a daily briefing with all of our directors, and we say, what's volume? Give us an update. How are things going? And so as the days go by, we can hear, whether it's laboratory, they're doing more tests. You hear on a daily basis that volume, and so that's a good indicator. Those things are good indicators of which direction we're going. So we like to do that. It helps, and like you said, there is going to have to be some tweaking as we go, and we will monitor and see what kind of tweaking we need to do to that.
So basically, the budgeted 2021 numbers, and we're not going to go through all of them because we don't have the time, but basically the net operating revenue 27.7, and the net operating expenses are 27.7. I mean, it's pretty close, and basically they only had $11,000 gain from operations anticipated for next year, because the first 3, 4, 5 months of 2020, or of your fiscal year 20, actually, the fiscal year starts July 1st. So I need to probably qualify that so people understand.
Sure.
Those first 4 months, or maybe even half a year, the numbers probably aren't going to be where they would have been in normal situations.
Yes, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at anywhere from 6 to 9 months of interruption with this COVID. And again, I hope and I pray that we don't see this same thing in the fall.
No.
With the COVID and the reoccurrence of the COVID pandemic going forward.
Let's hope they have some kind of vaccine, or at least something to treat the COVID, and hopefully by then they have some kind of definitive answer. All right, very good. So after-tax revenues are $511,400. Again, no tax money is ever used for the operation of the hospital. So that goes immediately to the, you're surprised with that, capital budget. Now, we just talked about the operating budget. Now the capital budget.
Yes.
And, of course, our hospital's not doing a thing the next year except adding new CT, adding MRI, expanding. You've got other stuff going on. Building an MRI building. You've got all kinds of stuff. That is all going to mostly be on leases.
Yes.
Where leases can be taken out of general revenue.
Yes.
Or if there is money remaining at the end of the year from tax monies, they could also be applied to that.
Yes.
Because it's a capital purchase. It just has to be extended over time.
Yes, that is exactly right.
But there are other capital purchases that need, I'm doing it as fast as I can, that need to be made because there are still pieces of equipment that wear out. There's going to be needs of the hospital, stretchers, things of that nature that need to be done. And that's another $380,000.
Yes. So we, as we look at this, we know there's going to have to be, and I'm going to say that 380 some thousand is, as we're going to prioritize that, the things that we need first, we're going to have to buy first, the things that we need, and we're already seeing some of the needs of some of those things getting close. So early in the process, we're going to have to make some decisions and start to do those purchases.
And those are tough. And sometimes you get hit with stuff that's not in the budget. We all know that.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, I mean, we've had approvals of purchases that we are still hanging on from this year. Some approval of those purchases. Those purchases may not have been made yet. At the time, we were just waiting to get to a little bit better position, and now COVID came in, and again, that's even more of a disruption than where we, I'm going to say the disruption with our accounts receivables and the issues with that we've had over the year with those, and so
You still
to
gotta
add
be-
to it.
Right.
I mean, you got to add to it.
Right.
It's not there's not enough on the plate. They got to add COVID to it, and
Right.
you know.
You got to be fiscally
And interrupt all the volumes that we need
Right.
to make things happen. And
fiscally responsible.
I
You
know.
still have to do it based upon your operations. All right, so very good. So as Kasey mentioned, that's the capital budget, and again, that some of those things may not be bought, some may be bought. Hopefully, there won't be any real big nasty something happen that is non-budgeted that comes up and bites you. That would just be horrible. Anyway, the April election board swearing will be in June because we're not having an election until June 2nd. Very quickly, the board resolution in support of the time-critical diagnosis designation. We had Jason on last week, talked about the STEMI program and also how quickly we do our heart diagnosis, different things of that nature, our stroke diagnosis. All that is it's a time-critical diagnosis designation the hospital has earned.
Yes.
Applied for and earned.
Yes.
And they have to do a board resolution every 2 years to say, yes, we're continuing with
yeah,
it.
we're dedicating funds, we're dedicating resources to make this happen.
Right.
And this is important to our community.
Very
So,
good. Now, I skipped one thing that I just want to remind people of, and I know you're going to have to go. But the board did talk a little bit about the no visitor rule is still in effect at the Salem Memorial District Hospital, but that is going to be reviewed end of May or early June to see where we stand and where things are standing in the state of Missouri.
Yes.
But as of right now, still the no visitor rule is still in effect. We just want to let people know that.
yeah, and yeah, we'll review it. We understand. We know it's important to get in to be there for those patients that are here, and we want that to happen. You know, I think that we have to consider. I mean, we are not like every other hospital. We do have a long-term care facility
Right.
attached,
Right.
and that has to play a part as well.
Big part in it.
Because
yeah.
those residents, we have to protect them at all,
Sure.
every way we can, every possible way. So
Sure.
that is just opening up the hospital, and that's not even opening up long-term care, but
Yeah.
just opening up the hospital can bring things into the mix, and
Yeah.
we just want to be very careful and very thoughtful for those people as well as the visitors throughout the hospital.
We
So,
just ask patience. None of us knew this was coming.
yes,
Nobody knows what the proper way of doing it. We're doing it experimentally every day is a new adventure. But the key ingredient is here for the hospital, and I can speak for it because I know safety for the patients, safety for the long-term care residents, safety for their staff. The whole thing. It's not just, well, we're going to worry about our patients and our long-term care residents and not care about our staff. It doesn't work that way, guys. The whole thing is it really is a collaborative effort. All right, very good. You guys want a closed session? Any votes? Did you guys give me a raise?
no, we had approved the strategic raises, the strategic. We had looked at those in detail, and they did make a motion to move forward with that.
Okay. Well,
So yeah,
that was already somewhat
Sure.
built in, though, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, into the
All right,
budget.
so-
yeah,
so
we
you
we
didn't
just
have-
gave more approval, and they
Okay, very good. Just
more
to go over,
information.
just go over it with the
Yeah,
board. Very good.
yeah.
All right, buddy. I hate to tell you, but you need to leave. It's 9:32, so I did the best I could.
Hey, you did fantastic. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no
so-
problem. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
We really appreciate our friends from the hospital, and the board does a tremendous job. Not an easy thing to do, especially at this time with all this going on. But a lot of good questions were asked at the board meeting. It is normally open to the public. If you'd like to join the board meeting, you can via Zoom. That's basically, we're not allowed in the meeting. We had to join by Zoom
Yes.
as media, so it's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
You still get all the information, and so we do remind you can do that. and get a little bit more of the skinny of what goes on actually at the board meeting, what happens. Kasey, thanks again for coming in. You and your family have a wonderful Memorial Day holiday.
You too, and thanks for your support. Hospital
Hey,
thanks you for your support.
no problem, and let's go golfing.
All right.
Take care. Kasey
All right.
Lucas, Hospital Administrator, Salem Memorial District Hospital. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And you have a wonderful day. Get on the road because somebody's going to be yelling for you in a minute. All right. Thank you much. We are going to come back with Civic Happenings